Think about when you've felt stressed or anxious or depressed. Do you want to sit with that state? Like, is it fun to sit with your anxiety? Is it fun to sit with your stress? Is it fun to sit with sadness and grief? I've met many people who would say that's fun. But what happens if over and over and over again, you completely avoid it? You put it aside. Humans do one of two things, right? You implode or you explode. That's the direction you go if you do not face the experience of emotional and mental health difficulties. There's one notion that catching and challenging thoughts and replacing thoughts with quote unquote more realistic or positive thoughts. I ascribed to that notion a long time ago, and I found that there was a lot of temporary relief that it could provide through the analysis process, but it was very short-lived. It never really fully solved the problem of stress or anxiety for me. And if you've heard me talk about kind of like the modality that I will say subscribe to, because I don't want this to be overly dogmatic, but one of the ones that I'm more fond of, if you will, that I utilize more frequently is something called ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy, which challenges the notion of challenging your thoughts. And instead of trying to replace them or think about challenging them or asking if they're realistic or not, it has you just sit with it. It's a state of acceptance, a state of mindfulness. It helps us to deconnect from those thoughts as just language and narrative, as opposed to deconstruct by replacing thoughts and narrative. It's all about mindfulness, and then also linking what you're doing with your value system. And the reason I share this is because the biggest thing that I've done in the last few months is analyze what is it that matters to me. Because if I'm going to live a values-driven life, then my behavior, sure as all get out, better be connected to my values. It better be congruent. And if it's not congruent, I need to ask why. And then I need to commit to a new action so that I can live a life that is congruent with what I say is my value. Family is my biggest value. And it is the one that I keep coming back to over and over and over again. And so when I think about my family, I think, what am I doing right now? Is it working me towards my value, or is it working away? Is it pulling me away from living a values-driven life? And that's where ACT has really come in, to help me defuse from this narrative, this challenging narrative, to help me quit compartmentalizing and stuffing it away and just simply allowing myself to sit and experience emotion. Experiencing emotion and sitting with it is very difficult. It is not easy. Comes back to that whole idea that nobody likes to feel anxious or stressed or depressed. It's not a fun thing. But the reason that we do sit with it is because we want to accept and acknowledge that that experience can be directive. It can help guide us. It warns us. It has us question, again, if whether or not what we're doing is in line with our value system. So for me, it's been a matter of really doing what I can to shift my focus, to be more mindful, to be more values driven, and to diffuse from the narrative, the inner dictator that sits on the shoulder constantly chirping, and ask myself every time, is that helpful? Is it workable? A lot of times I'll just thank my mind. Yeah, thanks a lot, mind. And that may sound silly. It's an ACT practice, but it may sound silly to thank your mind. But a lot of times it's just acknowledging that it's there. The other thing that I found really helpful from an ACT perspective is using a diffusion technique that instead of saying, I'm feeling anxious right now, it's saying I'm noticing. I'm noticing that I'm having a thought that is making me feel anxious right now. If you think about the way those two are worded, which is intentional, we intentionally change the wording, we can actually unhook and diffuse ourselves from that thought and that experience in a very healthy way. Instead of defining myself as I'm anxious right now, and saying I'm noticing that I'm anxious right now, it gives it a lot less power. If you were to take a word or something that is a part of your narrative, I'm incompetent, I'm stupid, I'll never make it, and you repeat that a word that's connected to that over and over and over again, it starts to lose its meaning and value and has a lot less control over you. And that is a practice that I implement a fair amount. The word incompetent. Sometimes I'll just say that word over and over and over again for 60 seconds. And it just sounds like noise. And it has a lot less power because I'm diffusing from that word. So that's how I've been using ACT in more therapeutic tools as a mechanism to help me with persistent states of stress and anxiety and depression over the last few months.